Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to another video. I am Zahra Usman and I am here to teach you all things curriculum and how to teach effectively with an Islamic vision. Now let's talk about planning. You either love it or you hate it, and alhamdulillah, I love it. So today what I want to do is I want to break down how you can make a long-term plan for the year as well as a short-term plan. So at the beginning of the year, I don't know if you are into the habit of planning your homeschool out or your school or your year if you're a teacher in advance, but I personally do, and I highly recommend it. I do it for my personal life as well. I like to plan maybe 3 to 6 months in advance. I did used to plan a year in advance, but sometimes it's too far to think of. But when it comes to education, if you are following a curriculum, or you have certain goals that you want your child to achieve, I highly recommend that you have a general idea of what you intend to cover from the time you start until the end of the year, or when you want to, however long your academic year is. So let's begin with long-term planning. Okay, so what is a long-term plan and why is it important? I just mentioned a little bit about why it's important, but to add to that, it helps organize your tasks. It helps organize your topics and your curriculum instruction and delivery, because when you jot it out and you make your plan, then you know what you will be covering by the end of the year, and you can have a good idea of what you will have accomplished by the end of the year. Another reason why it's very important to do a long-term plan is so that you can get a good idea of how much time you need to allocate to certain topics, and what topics that you will not be able to cover this year, or what topics will you not be able to go too much in depth into. So that's why a long-term plan is important, and of course it keeps you organized and it ensures that you complete the curriculum. If you're a teacher, you have to do it, and if you're not a school teacher but you're a home teacher, then it just helps keep you on track to ensure that your child is covering what they need to cover for that year. So that is what a long-term plan is. It's you making the plan for the year. And a short-term plan is exactly the opposite. You are not planning for the whole year, but you are planning for the next 1 to 3 months. And the short-term plan follows the long-term plan. So first you make the long-term plan, and that is you put in your topics and just generally what you hope to do, and then the short-term plan is more you plan more. Maybe you prepare your resources, or you chalk it out more and you outline it more. So let's begin with long-term planning. So the first thing you're going to need to do when you want to write up your long-term plan is you need to get out a calendar. And on that calendar, I want you to decide on how long your school year is, or how many months you plan to homeschool, or how long is your academic year in the school that you teach at if you're a teacher. And then plot in all the holidays, or the days that you'll be off, or the days that you plan to take a vacation, or the days that if your husband has particular off days and you want to spend more time. Or chalk that out now and block that out, so you know that you will not be homeschooling on those days. And this is important because it'll give you an idea of which units you can do leading up to that time or after that. And the reason for that is you don't want an interruption. You don't want to interrupt the learning, so you want to effectively complete a unit or a part or half a unit, or the more important parts of a unit before that break starts. Why? Because a week later, 2 weeks later, you don't want to have to go over and review and spend time going back over the material. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Block out the times that there will be no school on the calendar. The next thing that I recommend you to do is make a list of all the topics that you would like to cover. Obviously, you can consult your child if you're a homeschooler, and decide on the topics that you will cover that year. If you're a school teacher or if you're following a curriculum, then you can look into the books that you have or into the curriculum for some inspiration. And if not, pick topics that you guys are interested in, or Islamic topics that are important for you to cover. The next thing after you have made your list of topics that you hope to cover, have a good look at the topics and ask yourself, do these topics relate to any particular season in the year? Is it better done in certain times? For example, let's say you want to do a topic related to conservation of energy or something about the climate change or something along those lines, then perhaps the best time to cover that would be in April, because in April is Earth Day. It happens in April. Another thing, for example, let's say you want to do topics Islamic topics such as Ramadan, Hajj. Perhaps you want to, or even Salah. Maybe you want to correspond with the dates of the Isra wal Mi'raj. So you would want to select topics relevant to certain seasons. So, for example, if I'm doing a topic on plants, then I would hope to do that in October, November. Here, that is planting season. And if I would like to do something relevant to desert life, and so I would hope to do that when the weather is good. Speaking about Qatar, the weather is it's really hot out here, but around December, January are times that you can go and spend time outside. So once you figure that out, if there's any relevance, the next thing that you can look at is how long this unit may take. So if you are the one to decide, then that's okay. But sometimes if you're, for example, let's say you're doing math, you look in the math book, you look at the table of content, or any subject that you're doing. Have a look at the table of content and see how long that unit is. So how long will that unit take? Some units, like in math patterns, they take it should take about 2 weeks. Geometry usually takes about 2 weeks as well. But another topic, for example, measurement or data management or number sense enumeration, those topics usually take a lot longer. So I wouldn't schedule those topics in, for example, December if you plan to take a 2-week break, if that makes sense. So first thing is to block out the days that you're not schooling on your calendar, and the next thing is to make a list of all the topics you want to cover, and the third thing is to decide what time of the year you want to cover which topics. Okay, then after you have done that, now you can decide on the order that you will teach them in. So now that you know that some topics you really want to cover these topics in this time of the year, then now you can start planning the order of the topics that you will cover. So just to make things simple and easy on yourself, just do it by month. So if you're starting in September, then what are you going to cover in September? What are you going to cover in October? What are you going to cover in November? And so on. And it doesn't mean that you'll take the whole month, but it's a good way to plan it out month by month. And if you chose more than 10 topics, then you can just have them, you can prioritize them. So select the ones that you really want to do, and then the other ones can be extra. All right, so you selected your topics. Now you have an idea when you're going to do each topic. The next thing is to decide what academic skills you'll be covering when you teach those topics. Okay, so if you're not sure what academic skills, you can have a look at the last video that I did. I gave a lot of examples, but I was mainly talking about the Islamic objectives you should have when you teach any topic. But right now, what I am getting at is to decide on the academic skill that you will cover for each month or each topic. So you can just randomly choose the skills that you want to cover per month, or you can have a look at your topics and say, okay, this topic will go well here. Let's say you want to do a topic on short stories, for example. That's one of your monthly themes, or maybe even prophetic stories. Then maybe that is a good month to teach story writing, for example. Okay, now how do you know what academic skills you'll be teaching or what academic skills you should teach? There's two ways. One, you can have a look at your curriculum framework. If I can pull out my curriculum. All right, so this is the Ontario curriculum. This is for science and this is for language arts. It's online. Now, when a lot of people talk about curriculum, especially homeschoolers, they usually mean a set of books, for example. They mean maybe a box curriculum, whatever. But when school teachers talk about curriculum, they're usually referring to the framework, okay? The framework of things or the expectations that that a teacher, the expectations that should be met by the end of the year. So if you are familiar or you are comfortable with going through the framework, it takes a while to understand it, to be honest. But if you are familiar and comfortable with that, then you can have a look at the framework of whatever country or state that you follow. And in there, it will tell you what are some of the expectations for that grade level. And if you are not going, if you're not going to have a look at the framework, the state curriculum, then you could just have a look at any book that you use. For example, if you're using a math textbook or you're using a language arts textbook or a social studies or a history textbook, then you can have a look at the table of contents and see what skills are being covered. But usually you will not know what skills are being covered just from the textbook. However, some books will tell you in the table of contents the different skills that'll be covered. So for example, let's say it's a reading book, then it will tell you, okay, this unit is focusing on main idea. This unit is focusing on the comprehension skill of making connections. This unit is focusing on this particular skill. So that can give you an idea, and then you could just take those skills and plot them down into your plan. And the same, math is pretty straightforward as well. So that's the next thing that you can do when you are planning long term. Okay, so in language that you will teach paragraph writing. Depending on their age, you may be teaching essays, you may be teaching how to write a biography, you may be teaching how to write poetry, or how to do research, whatever it is. Then you can decide now which month you will focus on that. Okay, and just a tip, you want to focus on the smaller, easier things in the beginning, and the larger, the more complex work at the end, because you need to build up to be able to do that. So if you are teaching how to write multiple paragraph passages this year, for example, you're teaching essay writing or 3-part essays, then what you would want to do is teach paragraph writing in the beginning of the year, so that they know how to write paragraphs very well. And then at the end of the year, in the last term, the last 3 months, you can start teaching how to write longer and more complex texts, if that makes sense. So to quickly recap, when you are making a long-term plan, first thing you want to do is you want to block out the days that you're not schooling on a calendar. The next thing is you want to make a list of the topics that you hope to cover. The third thing is that you want to put those lists in order according to the seasons, or according to the times of the year that you would like to get it done. And the fourth thing is to plot the academic skills that you hope to cover for each topic. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to go into detail for the long-term plan. Don't worry about going into details of exactly what you will cover for each topic. You can jot down notes if you like, or you can or just keep it there so that you can come back to it as more ideas come up. But it will become really overwhelming if you plot exactly everything that you would like to cover in this early in the year. If you're a teacher, you probably have to do it. But if you are not and you can get away with not doing it, then save yourself the energy and focus on planning your short-term plans, your short-term calendar. So let's talk about the short-term calendar now. Now, your short-term plans is your plan for the next month to 3 months. Okay, so 3 months, you can, what I like to do is I like to just get a calendar out and then maybe just jot down what I hope to cover each week, especially if it's math and I'm following a textbook, then what lessons I will focus on and how long I will take for each lesson, for example. But you can just focus on month by month. And what your short-term plan is a more detailed, it's a more detailed plan. So in your short-term plan, you'll take the topic that you plan to cover that month, for example, or if you're planning for 3 weeks or if you're planning for 6 weeks, whatever it is, you do it topic by topic. So take that topic. What are the things that you plan to cover in that topic? What are the skills that you plan to teach in that topic? What is the Islamic connection that you will incorporate in that topic? and finally, what is the end result of that topic. Now, when I say end result, for if you are bound to a curriculum and or accreditation, then you probably have to have some type of evaluation at the end of that. And the evaluation could be either a test, or it could be a project, or it could be a presentation or an assignment, whatever it is. But I am a proponent of end of unit evaluations. Okay, it doesn't have to be, well, evaluation, there's so many benefits to it, to be honest, because it forces the child and the learner to go back and go over the work and then to reproduce that work in a way that shows that they truly understood it. So if you have the agency in the space that you teach, if you're a homeschooler, you do, and if you're a school teacher, depending on what state or what country you teach, and if you don't have standardized tests that you have to prepare for, then usually you have some a level of choice on what type of evaluation that you want to have. Now, what I would highly recommend is that you use the evaluation to benefit the student. The evaluation, even though for the government or for schools, is to show that the teacher actually taught and that the child learned. That's not how we should view evaluations. We should view end of the summative assessment or the end product. We should use as an opportunity to further the child's learning. Okay, so you can do that through having a project that they are interested in, and then presenting that project. It could be action based as well. They take that knowledge and now do something beneficial, which they'll be able to do in their community or within their school, whether it be raising awareness about a topic, or it'll be creating some kind of business or some kind of product. But think of a way that they can use this knowledge, that they can use the knowledge and produce something beneficial that hopefully they can use to worship Allah by, with a sincere intention, inshallah. Okay, so that's the short-term plan. The short-term plan, you will decide on all the details. It's a more detailed plan about each topic. So what is the topic and what you plan to cover in that topic? What are the skills that you will cover within that topic? What is the Islamic connections you'll make in that topic? And what is the end result? What's the end product? What do you want to produce? What do you want the child to produce at the end of it? And this should be decided in the beginning. I believe in backwards, I forget what it's called, but backward planning. So you can think of what you want the child to achieve at the end, or what you want them to produce at the end, and then start planning for that. Okay, so if at the end of it you want them to be able to write a letter to a friend, or a letter to a relative advising them on something, then you know that you need to teach the skills to get them to that. And I think that makes planning a lot easier, inshallah ta'ala. So that's what I wanted to cover today, and I hope this was useful to you and beneficial to you. I love planning, and some of my friends, they tell me it's an area that is difficult for them. So I thought that perhaps you would find it beneficial as well. So just to do a quick summary, we covered long-term planning and short-term planning. So your long-term plan is what you want to cover for the whole year, and that's just giving yourself an idea of the topics that you will cover and in which months you will cover it, or which times of the year you will cover it, or which order you will cover it in. And the short-term plan is what is closer to you, which is what you will be doing in the next 1 to 3 months, and then you want to have a more detailed plan. And the whole purpose of this is to have you mentally ready, to have you prepared, and to keep you focused on your current task. So if you have already written out what you hope to cover, then you know that you don't need to worry about those things until later. Also, even though you're not going to be worried about those things later, it also keeps your mind open for ideas, because you know that you'll be covering those topics later. So if you have planned a topic on Salah later on in the year, then you will, when something comes up that will look good for your salah topic, then perhaps you take it, you save it, and then you store it, and you don't dwell so much on it, because a lot of times we spend too much time getting distracted, looking at all these other ideas and researching all these different topics, but it's not even something you plan to cover right now. Instead, you will do your short-term plan and put all of your energy and focus on preparing that and then executing that. Inshallah, you'll have a successful lesson, and I pray that your students and your children benefit from your skills and your talent and your passion. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.